This is KTN.
Hata wakipiga kura watakuwa na support country yao.
If you mess up with the register in the diaspora, you mess up with the whole election in the country. That is why people are very cautious about giving their nationals abroad the right to vote.
The ABC can only do so much. The financially burdened, the even manpower, the short of human resources and financial resources. So I mean, they've done their best in such a short time. I think they should cut them some slack and travel.
If someone is so intent on voting, since the constitution, the new constitution provides for dual citizenship, they should just come back, vote, go back.
Watoto wengi wetu wako America na always wanakuja pande hii. Kwa hivyo I don't see why wanakatazwa kupiga kura.
How am I going to be able to take time off of work, lose the money I would have made during that day, and then afford either an air ticket or a train ride or perhaps the fuel to go to vote?
Watch the Diaspora Voice every Friday from 7:30 p.m. on www.ktnkenya.tv.
Okay, put your hands together now, everybody. Let's go!
A law passed in the US almost 7 years ago is soon coming into effect with far-reaching implications to the immigrant community, among them thousands of Kenyans.
The requirements for the act just giving back the background after the September 11 attacks in the US, the government of America really passed an act where they require all states in the United States to come up with one official ID for the citizens of this country, and they gave a timeline within which all the states have to have met that requirement, and it's expiring very, very soon.
Commonly referred to as the Real ID Act, passed by the House of Representatives in 2005, the law requires that if you live or work in the United States, you will need a federally approved ID card to travel on an airplane, open a bank account, collect social security payments, or take advantage of nearly any government service.
There is a law that was passed in 2005, immediately after the terrorist attacks in New York and Washington DC and Pennsylvania. And it was found out that the perpetrators of the attacks actually had obtained their driver's licenses very easily. And that precipitated the passing of the Real ID Act of 2005. Now, the Real ID Act has come up with requirements that all states must comply with in issuing driver's licenses to its residents of the states, including immigrants. The deadline for implementing the provisions of the Real ID Act by the states, it's actually January 15, 2013, which is next year. So by that date, all states across the United States must put in place procedures and requirements required under the Act for issuing licenses. And this means if you're an illegal immigrant and you do not have papers, in order to get a driver's license or to renew, you'd have to walk into the DMV of your state and present proof of your legal status here.
Practically speaking, one's driver's license will have to be reissued to meet federal standards. The Real ID Act has established what amounts to a national identity card. State driver's licenses and other such documents will have to meet federal ID standards established by the Department of Homeland Security.
I think the implications of those requirements are drastic for a lot of people that do not have legal papers. And this is because they will not be able to renew or obtain new driver's licenses. And as you said, driver's licenses are the recognized form of identification here in the US. So it's going to be tough, and this is the time for many of us who are in that situation, who do not have legal papers, to start evaluating our options and start thinking ahead.
As Chris, as you know, a good number of Kenyans came to this country, and there's a good number that do not have documentation, legal documentations as we know it here. And those people are likely to be really affected in a big way. For example, you are a man, you have children, you have a wife, and you are earning a living. And now the government comes up with this regulation that you have to have this type of ID for you to get a job. For you to transact anything in America, you have to have this ID that is nationwide type of ID. So it's going to put people in a very precarious situation. What do we do? If you don't have this ID, you can't work, you can't transact, you can't do the normal things that we do to live in this country. So what are the options? What do we do from here? So I think the need for us to come together again is emphasized so that we can brainstorm. How do we help our people? There are people who are likely to lose their jobs because they can't meet these requirements. There are people who are likely to lose their businesses because they can't meet these requirements. There are people who are likely to lose their livelihoods because they can't meet these requirements.
In this requirement, only an ID card, which in the US is basically a driver's license, approved by Homeland Security, can be accepted for any official purpose by the federal government. The implications of this is that the identification process has just gotten harder and more rigorous. For instance, one will need to bring a photo identity document, document one's birth dates and address, and show that the social security number is what one has claimed it to be. US citizens will have to prove their status, and foreigners will have to show a valid visa.
Status really affects how you break the ceiling or not, because coming with the wrong visa to the America, or being out of status in America, first of all, it builds a fear in you, because you don't want publicity. And you see, for you to achieve an American dream, for example, just a small business, doing a small business in Kenya, for you to achieve that business, you need to be seen, you need to be known. People need to know you, where to find your business. You need to market yourself. You need to market yourself. That's the word I'm looking for. But you see, for you to market yourself, you're exposing yourself to a government. You're exposing yourself to an IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, for taxes. You're exposing yourself to individuals who you don't know who is watching you. You don't know who's looking at you. And at one point, your status comes to play a part. And that's where a challenge comes, because now with the fear in your heart, you want to achieve a dream, you want to break the ceiling, you want to go to the next level, but you're not able to do it because, first of all, there's fear in your heart. You don't want to be known. You're like in hiding because you're out of status. You don't want so-and-so to know. You don't want your boss to know that you're using so-and-so's name or so-and-so's social security number to get a job. So that kind of plays a hindrance. Again, I've had cases whereby, this with our Mexican brothers and sisters. I've had cases whereby someone has worked for a company for 24 years. He's risen to the managerial level. He lives in New York, only to discover that this guy was using a wrong stolen identity, using a wrong social security number, using a wrong name. It's not his name. He's using somebody else's name as social security number to get this job. But you see, that's a level that people are avoiding because there's a fear of deportation. People think, Kenya is that bad, I don't want to go back there, I want to stay here.
State Department of Motor Vehicles will have to verify that those identity documents are legitimate, digitize them, and store them permanently. In addition, Social Security numbers must be verified by the Social Security Administration. The implications of this requirement become evident when you realize that in this country, the state-issued ID is everything. It's what many people use to transact business. You can't get a job, you can't travel if you don't have a state-issued ID. So for the federal government, this is a big deal. The number of Kenyans in the US who are expected to be affected by this rule is very high. It is estimated that half, if not more than half of Kenyans currently in the US have issues with their immigration status. That is, they are neither naturalized citizens nor green card holders.
Matter of status. A lot of Kenyans who left Kenya left for various reasons. Some left as students to study, others left for economic opportunities. And we also have others who left because of political reasons. But as they arrived in the United States over the years, some were able to get their papers processed and they were accepted. They have legitimate registration papers and they are able to work properly. But we have a huge number who have come over through relatives and friends and they have been underground. They have not been able to get their status recognized. They are under fear all the time. They are not able to attract proper employment and they are not able to get jobs that can be able to sustain them. And to make it worse, those Kenyans who do not have status, although they are quite productive in the USA, are not able to reach their full potential because they are limited by the status they hold, because there is no status. They are not able to come home and visit. They are not able to come and engage on new economic opportunities because if they come, they cannot return. And this is one of the challenges that we brought out in this meeting.
You know, people are here. I'll go back to immigration. Immigration, people are here. They have lived here. They have not been able to work on their papers right. So you find that it trickles down to affecting their career. Maybe they may not be able to get the kind of jobs they are looking for. They may not be able to build the life that they anticipated because of the restraint that come with that. And then at the same time, again, it also affects their children because if your papers are not right, you may ever end up affecting your kids.
Unfortunately, however, majority of those likely to be affected by this requirement are not even aware about it.
I believe very few. The reason why I say that is that we have really never had forums of education. I believe that very, very few Kenyans know about this, and the need for us again to come together to do education among our people, to enlighten our people what's going on, what are some of the legislations that are coming up that are going to affect our people negatively or positively, so that people can be aware of what's coming down the pipe.
Is there any solution to this? Opinion is sharply divided. There are those who believe that the only solution is to pack up and go back home or relocate to another country.
I have my own recommendations and suggestions to people. Number one suggestion or recommendation that I have been advising my clients is evaluate your immigration situation and see whether you have any realistic chances of ever getting legal papers here in the US through the legally laid down procedures and laws. If not, think outside the box. Unfortunately, the other suggestion is perhaps it's time to start looking elsewhere. And especially given the fact that the US government is very hostile to immigration at the moment. You can look at other countries. There is Australia, New Zealand, for instance, where they're very welcoming to new immigrants. It's time to actually think outside the box.
Is a decision to be made, but is a decision that has to be made very wisely. As you know, going back home without preparation is a big issue in itself. You have a family, you have 2 children, 3 children, a wife. How do you pack tomorrow to go home without plan? Where do you start? It's a very big issue. There are some people who have opted to go to other countries, like there are some who have gone to Canada. There are some who have opted to go to other countries. Some are going to New Zealand. But it's a major decision to be made. Again, how do you pack your family to New Zealand where you don't know? Do you have a roof for them the following day? Do you have school for your children the following day? How do you transition from America to New Zealand or to any other country without major preparation? It is an alternative on the table, but I think it needs people to be prepared for these things.
And that still those who have placed their hopes on President Obama's winning a second term so that he can deal with the issue of illegal immigration in the US once and for all. Whichever way one looks at it, the Kenyan community in the US has to come together to confront the issue head on.
What do we do? Nobody has an answer to that. But when we come together, we are going to find answers going forward.
Okay, from my own personal perspective, I think this is, given the situation that we are in, I would still say that the USA, as bad as it is, it's still better for most Kenyans. And that's why most of us do not want to go back to Kenya. But Kenya is not the only place you can go back to. I mean, it's our homeland, and home, east or west home is best, or it will always remain our home. But in terms of seeking opportunities, there are other countries that one can go to and pursue opportunities there. And as I said previously, I gave examples of Australia and New Zealand. In any case, we do have to open our eyes to the fact that America today is not the same America 10 years ago when some of us came here, or 20 years ago when some of us came here. Things have changed. The economy has changed in America. It's become tougher for immigrants to even survive here. Looking at that situation, I would say a lot of Kenyans here, maybe including myself, we are stuck in a rat. It's like being on a treadmill where you are running, getting tired, but getting nowhere. Now, if you're in that situation, honestly, from my own personal perspective, it's time to think very hard and weigh options available and take steps towards making a change.
My clear message to them is that there is still hope. It is not time to panic. It is not time to take steps that will injure us more than we have been injured already. It is time to come together. There are options. We can lobby our registrations. All those options are on the table. But I think the key is, can we come together and begin to reason together and find how to move forward? Whether it's preparation to go to another country, we need to digest all those issues on the table, and so that we can have a common approach. How do we move forward? Where there is unity, there is hope.
To discuss this issue and others related to the issue of immigration, we've invited Regina Njogu, an immigration lawyer with whom we are going to explore more on this topic. Welcome to our next part, the interview section.
every Sunday from 9 a.m. Radio meets TV. The DJ plays you the best of gospel music. Inspirational and life-changing stories.
Then you could only see me on trouser 3/4, 1/4, 4/4, all kinds of trousers.
Niliingia kwa jeneza haraka, nikaingia ndani na nikakufa nikakauka.
Kama kuna kitu kizuri nilipata kwa high school, nilimpata Yesu.
Every Sunday at 9 a.m. on Tukuza. It's a fresh start indeed.
It's all about big laughter.
They say the road to heaven is short and narrow. Now, if you are tall and fat, where will you pass?
It's all about the best comedians.
I was looking at you because you are looking at me.
It's all about the best joke.
Kuna reason why Olympics haitai happen Kenya. Mtu anakimbia huku kando mahoka. Brother, hakuna haja ukimbia na una sufuria kwa nyumba.
It's the biggest, craziest comedy show on TV, and it's coming to KTN.
Swag nayo.
Hello viewers, welcome again to our show, Diaspora Voice. My name is Chris Omalo, your host. Today we're here in Baltimore. We came here to attend the meeting with the Cohesion Commission, Dr. Kibunja's commission, talking about the involvement of the diaspora in peace and everything peaceful in Kenya. And I'm privileged to host Regina Njogu. Regina is one of our leading Kenyan lawyers in the US. She's very much involved in everything that affects Kenyans living here. Regina, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
You're one of the few immigration lawyers that we have in this country, Kenyan. Let's speak briefly about immigration law. Recently, Obama released a policy that enables young people to stay in the country without fear of deportation for a period of time. Just briefly, what does that mean?
Well, yes, on June 15 this year, 2012, the Obama administration released a directive. It's actually a reprieve. It's not an amnesty as many people think. It's a reprieve in the sense that it's going to postpone adverse action on some illegal immigrants. And these illegal immigrants are those illegal immigrants that came here while they were under the age of 16 and are presently below the age of 30, have no criminal record, have not been convicted of a felony or a major misdemeanor, or at least 3 misdemeanors. And also they do have to have graduated from high school or be currently enrolled in school or in the armed forces. So that's the criteria for those that are going to be covered by that action. It's called deferred action. And what the kind of benefit, immigration benefit that they're going to get is that they're going to be allowed to stay and work here in 2 years increments. So they'll be given permission to stay for 2 years, which will be automatically renewable for every other 2 years. So it's kind of indefinite. And they would also be allowed to work. In the US, they'll be allowed to leave, visit abroad and come back. And they'll be able to go to school. And that's a good thing.
I've heard from some people that some Kenyans are reluctant to take part in that policy. The fear is that maybe this is just a trap to expose them. Then after some time, they're deported. What do you think about that? Is that fear founded or unfounded?
Totally unfounded, because I don't think it's a bait. A lot of people think it's a bait. Throughout immigration history in this country, there have been amnesties and reprieves and such reprieves, and they have never been used as baits before. For instance, in 1982, there was an amnesty by the Clinton administration. And it was a good one because people actually got a permanent residence and stayed here. And at that time, a lot of people, including Kenyans, were very fearful that if they applied for that amnesty, they were going to be arrested and deported. And a lot of them never applied for it. Those who applied became permanent residents, citizens, and those who did not have lived to regret up to this day. I'm an immigration lawyer. I do believe in the integrity of the American system. Americans tend to be fair. They do have some values, and one of them is fairness. So even if they wanted to catch illegal immigrants and deport them, they have very many ways of catching them, very easy ways, rather than bait them. So I would say those fears are totally unfounded.
For those viewers who don't have access to an immigration lawyer, they can benefit from you today. What are the steps that the people need to do? Because I'm told there's still a large number of people who are confused. They don't know what steps they need to do. I'm told it's effective right now. People should be. What should somebody be doing right now as we speak?
Right. The effective date to submit papers for deferred action was actually August 15th. This past 15th of August 2012. If people don't know what to do, they do need to contact an immigration lawyer, because if they do it wrong, they may risk a denial or a prolonged action on the application. Or some other kind of mishaps that will jeopardize their chances of getting the benefit that they want. However, the simple advice I can give people is read the criteria. I just stated what the criteria is. You can go to the Department of Homeland Security website. The criteria is set up, is clearly set out there, and you need to collect documentation, proof to support every criteria point. Under this deferred action benefit, the burden of proof is on the applicant to prove that they meet each and every criteria listed. So again, I forgot to mention two other criteria, which is you have to have been here continuously for the last 5 years, and you have to have been present in the US on the 15th of June 2012. So you need to collect documentation to prove that you have been here for the last 5 years. You also need to collect documentation to show that you graduated from high school or are currently enrolled. I mean, then documentation to prove each and every of that criteria. Now, as to how to apply, there are certain forms you need to fill out, and there's a specific place that you need to send them. I do not want to give legal consultation or advice at this point. I would really advise them to contact a lawyer. If they want to contact me, they can do so. My website is rnwlawfirm.com. Again, R for Robert, N for Nancy, W for window, lawfirm, one word, .com, and all my contact information is there. And I do accept clients from all the 50 states of the United States.
Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we talk briefly about the Obama administration and immigration as we enter into the election period.
Every Sunday from 9 a.m. Radio meets TV. The DJ plays you the best of gospel music. Inspirational and life-changing stories.
Then you could only see me on trouser, 3/4, 1/4, 4/4, all kinds of trousers.
Niliingia kwa jeneza haraka, nikaingia ndani na nikakufa, nikakauka.
Kama kuna kitu kizuri nilipata kwa high school, nilimpata Yesu.
Every Sunday at 9 a.m. on Tukuza. It's a fresh start indeed.
It's all about big laughter.
They say the road to heaven is short and narrow. Now, if you are tall and fat, where will you pass?
It's all about the best comedians.
I was looking at you because you are looking at me.
It's all about the best joke.
Kuna reason why Olympics haitai happen Kenya. Mtu anakimbia huku kando mahoka. Brother, hakuna haja ukimbie na una sufuria kwa nyumba.
It's the biggest, craziest comedy show on TV, and it's coming to KTN.
Swag nayo.
Welcome back. We are talking to Regina Njogu, an immigration lawyer. She's guiding us on talking to us about the new Obama policy that provides a reprieve for a number of immigrant communities based here. Regina, welcome back to our show.
Thank you.
Just following up on Obama administration's new policy, we are entering a period right now as it is. Everybody hopes that President Obama comes back, wins the elections. If you have to take stock of Obama administration in terms of the immigration policy, how would you rate his administration's performance?
Unfortunately, I'd have to give him a D. The reason being, since he took power, he promised that he was going to pass comprehensive immigration reform that would have given a permanent solution or some kind of permanent amnesty to illegal immigrants, and that never happened. That would have given permanent amnesty to illegal immigrants. Actually, what happened is, as the next election neared, he started taking half-baked steps in terms of, like, there was one action he took last year, 2011, which is on prosecutorial discretion for people that were in removal proceedings. And then there is this June 15th, 2012 action, which are non-permanent. And to me, I think those are political moves geared towards appeasing the immigrant community, especially the Latino community, which holds a large significant vote. And of course, he wants to be re-elected, and that's why he's taking these last-minute actions. However, honestly, I think if he's re-elected, he's going to pass some permanent immigration action or solution.
Just within the same confusion on the immigration policy in the US, there is a requirement that the real ID issue. Please explain to us what that means.
Yes, there is an act of 2005. It's called the Real ID Act of 2005. It provides that all states must comply with some federal rules and regulations as it pertains to issuance of driver's licenses, which would be accepted all over the United States, and that would phase out the current driver's licenses issued by the states. So by 2013, all the states have to comply with those rules and regulations. If they do not, then their driver's licenses would not be accepted federally, and also people would not be able to use them. Now, illegal immigrants would not be able to be given driver's licenses whatsoever after 2013. So it has huge implications in terms of the fact that after 2013, while a lot of illegal immigrants have been able to renew their driver's licenses through various means in the past, they absolutely will not be able to do that. What does that mean? That means they will not be able to drive, they will not be able maybe even to rent apartments, they will not be able to fly because they have to show their driver's licenses. There's a lot of things they're not going to be able to do. And basically, survival for them in the US is almost going to be impossible.
There's been an argument that Kenyans in diaspora make noise, all this noise about being involved in what's going on in Kenya, but they don't play their part in terms of just coming out and, for instance, right now we're entering a period of voter registration. How many Kenyans do you think have registered so far?
Registered
how many have identified themselves in terms of showing the IABC that this is the number, it's large enough to warrant all this noise?
Well, according to the embassy, it's 15,000, and that's embarrassing. And I agree. I mean, I do agree that Kenyans, who are not in the diaspora, who say that we behave as if we are too important. Actually, I've heard that we've been called spoiled. We behave like spoiled children. To some extent, I would accept that. We make a lot of noise. We demand a lot. And I'm told that Kenyans in Kenya sometimes think that we demand to be treated as special people, as a special group, because we are remitting maybe 75 billion Kenya shillings a year. To some extent, I do believe there's an element of that. I think the Kenyans in the diaspora, we need to step up our act, and we need to do a little bit more to justify our demands.
As we enter this period of elections, the temperatures are very high, both in Kenya and even here. We can see from the blogosphere that people are taking positions. As a lawyer, what would you say, what would you caution Kenyans in diaspora in terms of keeping peace?
I think it's a good thing that we are able to go to the blogosphere and express our strong opinion with the new constitution, freedom of speech. It just means now we do have a more tolerant government as opposed to the Moi era, which was a dictatorship and people were put in for just saying the wrong thing, which was not necessarily the wrong thing. However, we do have to realize that with freedom comes responsibility. So if you're going to take to the blogs and express your strong opinions and your passions, you cannot cross the line. There are laws on hate speech, there are laws on national cohesion and integration. So while you do have a right to express your opinion, you do not have a right to fund disharmony. So we do have to be careful in those terms. It's very important to keep peace. It's very important to be level-headed. It's very important also to know the boundaries.
You made a presentation, and something that was very well received by the diaspora in the meeting was the fact that there's always been this blanket generalization that Kenyans in diaspora took part in the violence. What are the gray areas that you found and that you raised?
The issue that I was raising is the fact that diaspora Kenyans have been blamed for contributing to the violence, or at least helping fund the violence during the 2007-2008 elections. And there has been a blanket criticization, or rather blaming, of the entire diaspora, and that should not be. If there are some people in the diaspora that acted in such a manner as to contribute to the violence, so let it be said it was some members of the diaspora, but I think we have been painted with a broad brush, and that is just unfair.
Like you say, it's not everybody. Generally, it's not everybody. So it's wrong for somebody to say that the diaspora are involved in funding violence. But looking into the future, how do you think the diaspora can, what part do you think the diaspora can play to enhance peace in Kenya?
For instance, one area is that when you know that there is a group or there is a particular diaspora Kenyan who is involved in some of those activities of promoting violence or funding violence, you should report. That's one role we can play. The second role that we can play is, because we are always in touch with our relatives back at home and we have a lot of influence, is to encourage them to pursue the cause of peace and peaceful coexistence. Obviously, there's always going to be differences between different tribes. That's a given, just the same way there are differences between members of the family. But the way to resolve them is not through violence. We can help promote dialogue even amongst ourselves and start our own peace initiatives. Those are some of the ways we can contribute to peace in Kenya. And also I may add that we need also to not support and not host those politicians that we know come here to the US that are known to be involved in hate speech and some unpeaceful behavior.
The diaspora doesn't just seem to run away from the fact that from voting rights. That is, everybody I speak to these days, they just want to talk about voting rights and how the diaspora is going to vote in the coming elections and the disenfranchisement and all that. You are a lawyer, and I know you keep close contact with the commission back in Kenya. Has any positions changed in terms of the polling stations?
As for now, everything is up in the air. As you know, the commission, the IEBC came to the diaspora. They promised that the diaspora was going to vote for the post of president, but they also made it clear it was only going to be done at the embassies and the consulates. I don't think that has changed. But remember that after that, a couple of months, maybe about 2 months after that, their budget was slashed significantly. There are also other logistical issues that came up because the BVRs became unavailable. So right now I think it's up in the air. I'm very optimistic that we are still going to vote, but I would also like to challenge the diaspora. We want to vote, but I just learned recently that when the embassy tried to register, to do a mapping of Kenyans in the US in order to justify why we should vote, only 15,000 Kenyans registered. So when the IEBC comes back here to conduct voter registration, it's imperative that we diaspora Kenyans show up in large numbers to register to vote. Otherwise, if they come here and they run the exercise of voter registration and they find that only 50,000 Kenyans in the diaspora are going to register to vote, that might not justify an investment of them having to come here to conduct an election. So the onus is also on the diaspora Kenyans. We keep claiming, and it's true, we are over 3 million Kenyans and that we deserve to vote. I totally agree with that. We deserve to vote. We should not be disenfranchised. However, if we don't play our part, we'll have ourselves to blame.
Thank you very much, Regina.
Thank you.
Viewers, we've been talking to Regina Njogu, an immigration lawyer based here in the US. She's educated us on issues around immigration and voting rights. That's it from me, Chris Wamala. We'll see you again in our next installment. This has been Diaspora Voice. Thank you.
Watch the Diaspora Voice every Friday from 7:30 p.m. on www.ktnkenya.tv.